to say that sometimes the Gospel of Mark is not very complimentary to the disciples might be an understatement. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, they look confused, they look resistant, they look like they're just not with it at all. And so today, we hear again the disciples bumbling along. Can't you just hear them yelling out, "Hey, Jesus, that guy over there that's not one of us, he's casting out demons in your name. We don't even know who he is. He's part of those people we don't know and we don't want to know. He's out there saying he's healing in your name." No thought that here is someone who is sick, asking for help. Here is someone receiving help. Their concern is that this healer is not part of their in-crowd group. Jesus, as always, has a radical answer. Don't stop him. Those who are not against us are for us. Those who are not against us are for us. I have one story to share this morning. When I was a caretaker for my mom when she was sick in Georgia, I was invited by a little local college 25 miles down the road to come and do prayers at the graduation service. When I arrived, I looked in the program to see the name of the person who had been elected, earned, awarded the role of speaker valedictorian. When this young woman came to the podium, she had her head covered, as Muslim women do, and she gave the address. I was fascinated by her because her address sounded more like a Christian sermon than a valedictory address. She talked about agencies that she had volunteered in while she had been in school at Piedmont College. She talked about wishing that her family had been rich and they could have come to her graduation. But family members had pooled their money and her younger sister was the only one who got to come because the parents thought it was important for the younger sister to experience American culture. Afterwards, I went up to her and asked if they had plans for lunch, and they didn't. So the three of us went to lunch at a little student union cafe. And I asked her, "How come your talk sounded so much like you're a Christian? Are you a Christian?" She smiled and said, "No, I'm a Muslim. But Muslims are taught to care for the human family too." When I got back home, it had already been on the local news that this young woman had given the valedictory address. And my Aunt Fussy, who often did not see eye to eye with me, said, "Did you know that Muslim girl got to be valedictorian? Out of all those American children, she got to be valedictorian?" And I said, "Yes, her speech was beautiful. It sounded very Christian to me." "Well, you know those Muslims are just here to kill us off, don't you?" "Where do you get these ideas from, Aunt Fussy?" And then I was able, which I always love to do to Aunt Fussy, to quote Jesus. "If they are not against us, they are for us." If they are not acting like the enemy, they are not the enemy. And since that story didn't take as long as I thought it would, I could tell a second story. My first cousin's son brought home his fiancée. And we knew that this kid was unique because he was the only white student at Morehouse Black College. And he had dated a Cherokee Indian girl before he went away to school. Then he went out to the West to go to medical school, and he met this Buddhist woman. And he brought her home to my very, very, very Methodist first cousin. So my cousin called me up and he said, "She's a Buddhist." And I said, "So? He loves her, doesn't he? But she's a Buddhist." So I couldn't wait to take the article I had read in Christian Century about how Buddhist monks have helped people throughout their history, how they've donated their lives to healing and prayer. Wouldn't it be a marvelous calling to not have to do charge conference forms and just do healing and prayer? I mean, wouldn't that be a marvelous calling, that you just pray for people? There's so many people on our prayer list that I wish I could just go to and pray with. Barry Wood, Mr. Tinkham, the list is endless. Buddhists believe in a God of power. Jesus says, if they're not against us, they're for us. This morning, as we celebrate World Communion, it's a great idea to think that Christians all over the world have begun at the first stroke of the change of the clock in their country, having communion. And that will go on through all the hours of the day. People will be celebrating the gift of God in Jesus Christ. Isn't this a marvelous text for today? Because as we Christians give God thanks for the incarnation of God's power in Jesus Christ, we can also give God thanks that there are many paths to the heart of God and that we are called to be one family. Amen.